Greetings everyone, this is Rambling Collector here, and welcome back for another book review. The subject of today's video, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, the first of the Shepard King duology series. So, a little bit of fun fact though, I have just wrapped up this book as of yesterday, but I was way too excited to not do a video review immediately the next day, and to those of you who have already read this book, I think you can understand my excitement. But for those of you who have not, well, allow me to fill you in. Now with that being said, let's get on with the review, shall we? So, One Dark Window. What is it about? It follows the tale of two characters infected with magic, Elizabeth Spindle and Raven Yu, in their quest to complete a magic card deck to lift a curse upon their kingdom. Now, to explain the plot here. The kingdom that they live in, Blunder, is surrounded by a mist that has been conjured by a creature known as the Spirit of the Wood. A creature that, many years ago, made a pact with the first ruler of Blunder, known as the Shepard King. The Shepard King would create this deck of cards known as Providence cards, which would allow people to use magic without any sort of consequence, at least without the effect of degeneration. We'll get more into that in a little bit here. However, these Providence cards are now held by members of royal families within Blunder, or in some cases being held by the king and his royal guard. However, something occurred where the Spirit of the Wood has now cast a mist, and anyone who walks into this mist without any sort of protection, or at least without any signs of infection, will be driven to madness and will be devoured by the spirit as payment for their betrayal. Now, Elizabeth comes into this equation, and Raven as well, by the fact that both of them have suffered from the infection. Now, the infection is something where someone comes down with a high fever, and if they're able to break free from it, they can sometimes have magic. However, this is very heavily taboo within the Kingdom of Blunder, to the point that anyone who is found to be infected will be taken to the king's dungeon to see how well of a use they provide, and if they don't, they will be executed. Now, Elizabeth and Raven have kept their magic secret for quite a bit. In Raven's case, however, he also operates as the captain of the king's royal guard, known as the Destriers. Elizabeth has been kept as a ward in her uncle's house after she was cured of the infection, and has been hiding it now for quite a long time. However, that is not the only secret she is hiding. Her magic is the ability to absorb Providence cards. That meaning, when she grasped one of the cards, that being the Nightmare card, she absorbed it and now has the manifestation of the nightmare from the card within her mind, constantly clicking away and just whispering in her ear. For those of you who are anime and manga fans, think of the nine-tailed fox from Naruto being inside of her mind, whispering away, offering her magic, all of that. Now, another major highlight for me with this book was that Elizabeth and Raven's romantic chemistry build-up throughout the course of this novel was handled perfectly, with a great mix of sweetness and sincerity with a hint of spice. They don't get too explicit with the spicy bits, but you can just feel the chemistry build up between them, and I loved every second. There was actually a moment further in the novel that actually had me in tears with how deeply it hit me. And you will understand when you read it yourself. I'm not going to spoil too much on that. All I will say, though, is that I am a sucker for great chemical romances like this, where the two characters are not plot devices, but rather their own unique people, and watching them organically fall in love like this over the course of a book. I really enjoyed it, and it made me smile with these two lovebirds on the page every time they interacted, watching them grow closer together, despite the anxieties of knowing that both of them had the infection, what they've had to go through, the challenges that they have faced, and how similar they were to one another. But more than that, though, the nightmare the creature that is inhabiting Elizabeth's mind, does have a secret identity that is revealed further within the novel, and it was definitely a major surprise, to say the least, that truly raised the stakes of what was going on within this world, but also providing some very interesting world building. But, more so than that, highlighting the costs of magic, proving the lesson that nothing ever truly comes free. Something that is continuously hammered throughout the book is that magic always comes at a cost. Everything comes with a price. Magic more so because of how deeply it can affect people. Those who are cast with the infection do not live a happy life. They suffer from a condition known as the degeneration, and this is actually exemplified with quite a few unique ways. But I'll get into that here more in a little bit. For now, though, this book, being at 393 pages, was definitely a fun ride all the way through, and it left me craving for more. But let us move on to the next, shall we? So, my random thoughts here for a segment, if you'll allow me to blather away for a little bit. One major thing that I really enjoyed throughout this novel was the magical system that was in place here. Because with the combination of the Providence cards as well as the infection, showcasing two different types of magic and how it could be used, it was actually really interesting, showing how Providence cards can be used without the risk of degeneration. However, there is always a price when you use it too much. To give a few examples here, one of the more common cards is the Maiden card, and when the bearer uses it, they gain far more or greater looks. However, it comes at the cost of them becoming far more cold and calculative, far less likely to have a heart. So while you will be beautiful on the outside, you will become cold and heartless on the inside, sacrificing your heart for greater beauty. In other cases, the chalice, truth serum, which when used forces the person to tell the truth, and if they continue to fight it, the flip side of it is you will become poisoned. And that alone is a scary thought. You have other cards as well, such as the Scythe, the Nightmare, the Well, and, of course, the Mirror. The Mirror card, of course, allowing you to turn invisible, but the more you use it, the more likely you are to see the dead. Which, yeah, that's pretty deep, even pretty freaking dark for a card to be able to do that. It's like, oh, you want to turn invisible? Cool. How would you like to see the paranormal? Yeah, that's crazy to me, in all honesty. But, okay, moving on with the infection type of magic. That one alone is the most costly because it really degrades you over time. With the three main cases of the infection that we see showing different types or varieties of degeneration. For context, with Raven Yu, his degeneration is being that he cannot use certain Providence cards. The only two that he has access to, as of right now in the book, are the Nightmare and the Mirror. And him using these are the only ones that can work, because otherwise, any other Providence card he touches, according to Elizabeth's eyes, loses their color and cannot be used with him. And to me, that is actually pretty shocking. Elizabeth herself has the ability to absorb Providence cards, as evidenced by her absorbing the Nightmare from the card itself. And as for another character, Emery, while he does gain greater insight whenever he touches people, his degeneration is the fact that he is gradually losing himself, both in body and in mind, going gradually more and more insane and dying as a result of his magic. And it only gets worse every time. And this is one of the things I love about certain magic systems, when they come with a price, because having access to such infinite power cannot come freely every time. There should always be a price tag on this, a warning as to what you should not be doing with certain magical systems. One great example of this, or at least a few great examples I can see here, harkens back to Warhammer. For instance, in Warhammer 40,000, while there are psychers who can actively use the energies of the warp to cast spells, or even project themselves within the warp to be able to communicate mentally, or certain things of that nature, using too much of the warp leads to corruption, as well as demons trying to track you down. And, in this case, with certain points with the Providence cards, they will cause you a negative side effect if you use them for too much. Same thing with degeneration. Now, another great example, the inheritance cycle. You can cast spells as much as you want. However, it also relies upon the energy, whether of yourself or what you may have equipped. For instance, a regular human sorcerer who is not a dragon rider will have to use the energy of themselves, as well as whatever jewels or anything else they may have available. But even so, using higher tier spells costs a lot more energy, to the point that you could wind up killing yourself if you're not careful with how much energy you are pouring into a spell. It requires great concentration and imagination to be able to use magic within the inheritance cycle. But there's always the cost of risking your own life if it is a spell that you cannot maintain or control. And this is one thing that I absolutely love, and at some point I need to make a future video on this with certain magic systems and just kind of gloss over them and what I love about some of their details. But I greatly love magic systems like this, where there's always, for that great power, there is always a great cost. And that is one thing that I've really enjoyed seeing with the Shepard King duology, bringing that to life. Which is why I cannot wait to read the sequel. And I'm pretty sure you all can guess what the overall score is going to be here. So, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig gets an honest 10 out of 10 for me, for great characters, really well written story, great chemical romance, and also a really interesting magic system that had me really excited to see more. If you all enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe if you're interested for more. And if you have any other book suggestions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. I am always eager for suggestions for different novels or books to read. And if you have read this book yourself, feel free to let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm just crazy? Or do you have a differing opinion altogether? I would love to have a conversation with you all in the comments about this book. And if you did like it, feel free to check out some of the other books I've covered on this channel as well. Anyways, thank you all for listening. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day, fellow readers.